Thank you, everyone, for this excellent turnout. And thank you, CII, for the opportunity to moderate this panel with an incredible group of people, really. So this is great. The topic today is talking about family legacy, family businesses, and how the next generation can take it forward. Now, in India, at least 75% of businesses are family-run, family-led. This is something that we as Indians are very, very comfortable with. There may be some industries where the next generation taking over is maybe frowned upon. They call it nepotism in Bollywood. But there is no such problem when it comes to Indian industry. It's a rite of passage. It's well respected. The question is that what can the next generation do to take forward those values, that legacy, at a time when so many things are changing. Now, to speak on this, of course, I have this excellent panel, all of them part of family businesses, taking forward family businesses, and I would say experts on the subject. So welcome to all of you. Let me begin with Mr. Munjal, who has literally written a bestseller on how family businesses work, the makings of a hero. Mr. Munjal, would you say that the key source, the secret sauce to a successful business is having family involved? Does that help? Is that what makes it a success?
No.
No.
No, the answer is no. So, more and more family-owned businesses are realizing that if they figure out, or let me roll back a little bit. Mr. Bagla and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, that it's well known now that by the third generation, 94% of the businesses will finish or will destroy themselves, family-owned businesses. So, which is a very significant number. And therefore, there's now research being done is what is distinctive about those 6% which continue generation after generation after generation. The first interesting distinction was that these are businesses which were able to make a distinction between ownership and management. So if I realize that my value and wealth lies in my business, if I'm smart, I'll do what's the best by the business to make it successful, and which may or may not be somebody from my family running the business. Now, it may seem a bit extreme because traditionally the case has been exactly what you said, that if you're part of the family, it is expected that you will go on and run the business. But around the world now, some of the larger, more successful family-owned businesses are putting the smartest people to manage the family, not necessarily the business. Because what they find is that for the company, for the business, you can find some of the smartest, best equipped managers, executives, experts to come in and run the business for you.
Can that ever happen in the Indian context? Let's be honest. The best manager is the one who's grown up in your household.
So again, I'm not saying that's not a good idea. What I'm saying is we have to be careful that it should not be an entitlement that because you're born in a certain family that you have the best capability to run the business. That's the point I'm making. Okay, it's a slight distinction between what you are saying and what I'm saying.
That's actually a great segue. Let me come to you, Anant, on this. You started off with HUL. 1 year, I think, initially in HUL. You've gone through the grind, risen up the ranks. You know, Mr. Munjal talked about that there shouldn't be a sense of entitlement. Did you have to work your way, of course, to this wonderful position and all the success that you have brought your company?
Yeah, no, I think it was a tough journey for me too. So as you said, I worked outside the business for some time. And I'd say my first 10 years in the group was a lot about skill building. And I started off as a territory leader in CEAT. After that, moved to a regional manager role, moved to a supply chain function and so on. So it was a lot about learning an all-rounded skill kind of a situation. However, I think there were a lot of challenges as well. So every time I changed roles, I would often get promoted, and all those promotions I knew were because of my family name. I would get promoted, or kicked up a little bit every year and a half, 2 years. And to that extent, the challenge that I faced was one of confidence, that am I moving up because of my family name, which absolutely was the case. The second was, how do I earn the respect of my peers and reportees who may have 20, 25 years, 30 years of experience, whereas I have 7, 8 years of experience. So those were concerns that I had for quite some time. When I then took over as managing director of CEAT about 10 years after having been in the group, I would say that the only time I got confidence was after my initial years of success. So when I did take over, there were a lot of challenges in the business. Our debt equity was 2:1. There were relationship issues with union and management. There were issues with customers. And over time, we were able to resolve some of that. And only with that change was I able to get the confidence to run the business, or to feel that, yes, I deserve, or I'm okay to be here. So it's not an easy journey, but I think it's important to go.
That's an exception, I think, Anant, and kudos to you for saying that. These were self-imposed questions where you wanted to prove yourself and question whether you were going up the ranks just because of your last name. Was that, in a sense, also a restriction because of higher expectations? With 7 or 10 years of experience, you're expected to lead people with 20 years of experience. That's also a challenge.
No, absolutely. I think it was tough, and there was a lot of doubt in my own mind. But I think this process, I had great mentors. I'd say my father helped chart out my career, think about how I can build the necessary skills. And I had all the necessary support as well. I had great mentors in my bosses who were there. All of them were professionals. While I was even doing a sales role in CEAT, I would attend once in a while key M&A meetings or key meetings at a group level, which would again give me a lot of strategic knowledge. So I think as a family member, I did have a lot of support during this process of grooming as well.
So Tamanna, this is the point I was trying to make earlier. This is evolved thinking. And unfortunately, it's not as common as one would like to imagine it ought to be, or it should be. I think this is very smart thinking, actually.
I think here the important thing is how to make a family person the smartest and the best manager. That is what the family legacy would be all about. It does not start in the company, it does not start anywhere, but it starts at home. The most important role is played by the mothers in forming a child to become a leader. So very important, I feel, is the role of the women in making the family legacy continue, because what they tell the children is what stays with them for years in the childhood. What fathers say comes much later, but what mothers say is what stays with them right from their childhood, and that is what is called forming of a legacy. It is not about family legacy, about money. The family legacy is about culture. Family legacy is about values, which all starts from the mother's womb. It is very important to understand this, in my opinion.
I agree with you about role of women. That's definitely a big point. This brings me to the question, when we're talking about family business, when we're talking about legacy, it has very patriarchal overtones in the Indian context. And we were talking about this before the session with Mr. Munjal. Indians feel great trust for family business names. If there is a XYZ and Sons, we know it's going to be a trustworthy business. And the question is, shouldn't it also be XYZ and Daughters? Pallavi, I'm glad to have you on the panel as well. And it's a different story sometimes if you're in a family business, but not the son, isn't it?
I want to ask a question to everybody, actually. Think about it. If you say, here is a family scion, what comes to your mind, man or a woman? And that typically will tell you what the stereotype is and where the bias lies. And so in my case, as part of the Walton group, I had to fight a battle to be the first girl to get into the group. And I had to tell you that I had advisors from other family businesses, many uncles and my father was pretty aged and stuck to the bed, so he wasn't so active at that point in time. But it was a battle to just say, I want to stand up and get counted. And it only happened because we were 3 daughters. And my first 2 elder sisters were not interested. And the irony was that I was the only one who was an MBA. Everybody else, all the sons were graduates. I was the only one who had studied in a foreign university. I was at that point in time working with Procter & Gamble. So only one who was actually professionally qualified in a sense to enter anything. So yeah, it is, let's agree that there is a bias there. And I think it's changing. We see a lot of women coming into the family business. But I see that if there is a son, there is a little bit of a difference.
I'd just like to make a point here. This is a very good point Pallavi is making. And this is not just for industry. It's not just for small industry. It's actually for the world, and especially for countries like India. First is we need to realize women are the much smarter half of the population. Okay? It's actually a fact. And I've said this often, so I'm going to repeat this. They're smart enough to let the men now and then feel they're smarter. So, as Pallavi has just told us, in using different words, of course. For the next phase of growth, for countries like ours, one is going to be use of technology and innovation. The second is getting women into mainstream. I think that's going to be a massive game changer for us. And the quicker we realize it, the better and less painful this transition will be for us.
Mr. Bagla, let me come to a point that you made about third generation not really being able to take the business forward. It becomes tricky by the time you get to generation number 3. How do you overcome that challenge? Because you have, by that point, issues of succession, issues of whether that generation is actually qualified, interested, has the same value. Do you need to relook at the business? What do you think are the big challenges there?
See, I think making of a business is the first most important challenge. On what values the business was made, whether they were documented. What we have lost in India is history documented. We have the Vedas, we have the Shastras. We don't have it, or we have forgotten all about it. Let us start writing down everything. Let us start scripting down everything. Typically, like Mr. Munjal has written a book on the values of his family, about what his family struggles were. When the children really come to know, the generations come to know that what was the struggle that the families went through, what really happened in making of a family, that is when the fire builds into the belly. Let me put it like this. The fire has to build in the belly, and it has to continue for generations. The discussion in the households should not be just about chalo masti karte hain, yahan ghumte hain, ye karte, wo karte. The discussion at home should be of some values, of some purpose, of some culture, and that is what will keep the legacy going. If that is not to happen, then it is very difficult, because of course there is a lot of money involved. So the generations will become very easygoing, and life will be, because everything is available. When everything is available, why the hell should I have a fire in my belly? Unless you know what is the history, unless you know what is the values, unless you are told by your parents, unless you are right from the childhood, you are bred in such a way that you are you have to understand the values and understand. That is the way how generations after generations can continue to keep this legacy going.
Yeah, I think he's made a very critical point. Our behavior inside our companies and outside should be the same. It should be consistent. As human beings, we have to have the same behavior. So if you have a good culture and good value system at home, it's much easier to build a good business, by the way. And this is proven in some research that has been done a while ago in the US. And very often, we do this without even realizing. We bring up our kids saying, no, don't do this, don't do this, don't. Rather than letting them grow, letting them make mistakes, letting them learn, And also, very often, when you're telling the kid not to do something, you yourself are doing this. Kids are very smart. They're like a sponge, they will absorb everything. So, if you say something and do something else, they will learn from what you do, not what you say. And the same goes for the business. It cannot be different. You have to have consistent behavior. That's how good businesses get built. That's how businesses actually build a legacy which carries on. So if future generations are trained not only as good managers, but also as good responsible business owners, which unfortunately too few of us actually focus on.
Yes.
Can I add?
Yes.
For me, what I have, kind of observed is there are twofold issues why the third generation struggles. One is the founder is an entrepreneur. The third generation is just a business owner. And there's a difference in mindset there. One has grown with building something with their hard struggles. The second generation has probably seen it and has imbibed some of it and respects it and gives it a different level of commitment. The third generation hasn't seen it. They're one generation removed. And therefore, what they see is the entitlement, the ownership. And I agree with Sunil, unless there's a specific training to look at the business in a particular way, the shift from a business owner to a business leader doesn't really happen. And that's where the cookie crumbles. Apart from the fact that population in families grows geometrically, and then the business doesn't grow geometrically enough, and there are not enough assets to distribute, and then you have a conflict of power struggles, and that's the other reason why it crumbles.
No, absolutely. I mean, as famous are family businesses, so are splits in family businesses, and succession is a true challenge. But I'd like your view, Anant, on what is being spoken about the third generation and this point of entitlement and inculcating that idea. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I'd say it's a little subjective in my view. I think if you look at our family business, it traces back to the 1830s. And I would say maybe I'm the sixth or seventh generation in the family, which may be that 0.001% kind of number. But in a way, the business has undergone change. In the 1830s, we were traders. Then we became money lenders. And then we lent money to the British. When the British left, they left some companies behind. We inherited those companies. Those companies, many of them don't exist. And they've become something else. And then someone or my grandfather then acquired various businesses. So it's undergone a lot of change. So has the business continued the way it was? No, it's undergone a lot of change. Also, between these generations, there have been many splits and separations that you were just touching upon. And so, would you say this is the lineage or is another family member? They're all different parts of the lineage. And separations have happened, most of them amicably, but there have been separations and there's nothing wrong in that. I can tell you in the case of my father and uncle, they were working together in 2008-9. They were holidaying, and one day at the holiday, they got a letter from my grandfather saying, I'm seeing too many brothers fighting. I'm going to split the business. This is it. They were both shocked. There was a lot of love between them, and it happened well because they didn't want to do it at that time, but my grandfather, I'd say, had the foresight to take that decision. And I think the same happened with his father as well. My grandfather had 3 brothers. So to that extent, the businesses have evolved a lot. Family members have evolved and changed and separated. And to that extent, what is the third, fourth, fifth generation starts becoming a little fuzzy as well.
No, it's not, by the way. This is the 6% I'm talking about. This is continuity. This is legacy. So you guys are a clear example of this. And I think this is fantastic. This is what we need more of. Businesses, of course, must evolve, by the way. The needs of the market have changed. Consumers have changed. Preferences have changed. So if the business is not evolving, the business will collapse.
Absolutely.
It will not run.
Sure.
So the unique thing about legacy and continuity of family-owned businesses is both families have to evolve and the businesses have to evolve.
Absolutely.
And that is the best place to be.
And I completely agree on the point on values. I think everything in the end comes down to those values that a mother or a father have put into their children and what you're doing at home and what you're doing at work.
I want to go a little more in depth on what the experience is like. For someone who is born in a business family, knows perhaps from a very young age that there is a kind of a responsibility that comes with my last name. I may not join the business. If I do, then this is the benchmark. Many would say that's a great opportunity. You've been born right place, right time. You have that opportunity. But are there also challenges? The weight of expectations, perhaps one. Does it also restrict your room to maneuver or do what you want? Anant first, this.
No, I think there is some amount of pressure that is there, more from you put on yourself because of the great legacy that you've inherited. And you feel very lucky and you want to continue a lot of the good work that, again, your ancestors in a way have done. I'd say the journey, as I said, is not an easy journey. It is one where after every meeting, when there is a disagreement between you and your subordinates, you kind of come back and say, did I take the right decision? This guy has so much more experience than me, and so on. So those were lots of doubts and challenges, I would say, that one goes through. But I think you have to go through that grind and that experience to eventually be worthy of taking over or being an inheritor in a way.
Mr. Munjal, I'm keen to know your view on that, and not just from the perspective that Anant talked about, where maybe someone who reports into you has a different point of view. What if the patriarch or the elder person in the family has a different point of view? Is that also a challenge if you want to move in a different direction?
I can give you an example first of what I did. I was given the responsibility actually of helping groom the kids' future in the family, in the larger family. This is before we did the restructuring. We're a very large family, by the way, as some of you may know. So I spoke to all the next generation. I first actually asked them what their aspiration is, what are they looking for, and what are they passionate about. And I encouraged each of them to follow their passion, because we were uniquely blessed, as are all the people in this room. We can say yes and no to different things. Not a lot of people in the world can. We said, if our kids, because if you can turn your passion into your profession, there is nothing better than that. So we encouraged them to get the best education in their area of interest. First, I discouraged all of them from joining the family business, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, by design.
No, tell us about this conversation.
So the idea was to see who's actually deeply interested, okay? Not just falling into that position because they happen to have the same last name. So the good thing was, actually, some of them then chose to do other things. So we have a chocolatier in the family. She makes the best chocolate in the country. We have a fashion designer. We have one who runs a university. So not all of them actually went into the business, but many did. And we also encouraged the girls to join the business. My daughter set up a unique insurance distribution, which became the largest in the country. And some of them went and started doing philanthropy. So we said, you pick the area of interest and then pursue that. And those who wanted to join the family business, I said, you go out and get a job. First, you get the best education that you can. Go and get a job somewhere else. So one of my nephews says, Chacha, can you call so-and-so? He's got a nice job there. I said, of course I can call him. But that's not what I meant when I'm telling you to go and get a job. You better go and get it yourself. You're an educated kid. So, and he did. And I said, don't use your last name because it's not a very common name. So it's easy to figure out which family you come from. So he just used his first name. He's actually got a middle name as well. And then those who joined the family businesses, we gave them two options. That you either start at the bottom of the company and then you climb up. We will give you an accelerated method of climbing up, but your appraisal will be tougher than for a professional in a similar position. And the second option is you take a senior position in a troubled business, especially if it's losing money or is losing market share, or if you want to start something independent of our businesses, we will help and support you. And so we got all three cases in the family. And again, there's no perfect answer to this. You have to also feel your way. You will make mistakes, by the way. And that's something you have to allow yourself. Allow yourself to learn from your own mistakes. And then each time to get up and then carry on despite that. So we've had every kind of position. Today, if you look at our generation, you can almost immediately make out who went through the training that some of us did in the shop floor and which ones did not. So it reflects eventually, exactly like Anant is saying, if you've gone through the grind, you earn the respect. you cannot command respect from people you work with. They will look at you for who you are. They will look at you for what you do.
Excellent. Just one quick round of applause for this brilliant method that Mr. Munjal has described. I think it's amazing to first tell them, please don't join the business, and then they have to fight their way back. I think that's very inspirational. Pallavi, I just wanted to get your view on diversification in family businesses. Now, this can also be tricky, where the next generation may want to start something new to establish themselves. But at the same time, that may end up diluting the value of the business as well. Is that also a tricky sort of path to negotiate?
Well, I was just listening to Sunil and I discovered that, you can be in the business that you're in and also start a chocolate business as well as insurance distribution business, and it doesn't really come in the way. I think if as business owners, we look at where we want to create assets and where we want to invest, like any other business investor, I think that shouldn't matter. How well we run those operations is really the focus, I would think. I think it's a great idea to see scaling up or scaling down is a big decision in family businesses. When you talked about downsizing or evolving into from one business to another, there is an element of letting go of the business you were actually in and getting into another business. And in a way, I went through that experience myself. I inherited an NBFC and I wasn't having fun with it, honestly. Slowly and steadily, I moved that NBFC into a .com, which struggled because .com struggled in those days, but it led me into the business that I am in today. Therefore, it's a 100-year-old company. Today not doing anything that it was doing 100 years ago, and it's gone through many avatars. So I think investing, diversifying is a strategic decision. It's also a function of what you really want to invest in. If you think it's a great business idea, go ahead.
Mr. Bagla, let me come to the point of advantages of family businesses versus professionally run ones. And let me set some context for it. We're in the era of startups, unicorns, MNCs, venture capital is a big part of how businesses are run, or you have investors who are keeping a hawk eye on businesses as well. And a family business and the legacy which comes with it will, after all, just get you that far when it comes to the numbers. Is it still an advantage to be in a family business versus a completely professionally run one?
It's a very interesting question because there's no one answer to this. Everybody has had experiences. And let me tell you, in my company, I had an investor who had invested as an equity investor in my company. We had a lot of tough discussions because we were going through tough times in business. But I can for sure say at that point of time, I never realized the value that he brought into me, my system, and my organization. The corporate governance that they brought into the organization was absolutely phenomenal, and I suggest everyone to understand the value of corporate governance, and that can only come when there is a strong person holding equity in your company. And he's asking you tough questions. That's the first point I want to. Unless there are tough questions asked, we by nature say, ye company to meri hai, sab kuch mera hai. We never consider that a company is a separate legal entity. And especially when you're running through an MSME, we never treat a company as a separate legal entity, which is what is the basic essence of any company. So first thing first, let me put it like this. Management and ownership are to be separated, like what Sunil first said, is the most critical thing. Important for family legacy to continue is to make family people capable of being the most efficient professional. That is the exercise that one must go through, and that is what is the role of the family patriarch. If there are many children in the family, he should not have preferences over one with the other. It should be truly dispassionate decision as to who's the best. Putra prem hamesha तकलीफ में डालता है. That's a first rule of any business. And उसी में आदमी अपने बिजनेस को क्या, अपने देश को क्या, अपने सब चीज को खत्म करता है. This is a story, this is very clearly defined everywhere in our scriptures. So most important for us to understand is that there is a huge advantage of running a family business, provided we can understand the values, ethos, purpose, everything, objectives of doing the family business. If not, it is very difficult to run a family business. Family owned, professionally managed. Family professional, this is the best situation I can think of.
May I make a comment on that? So, two things. A very important point you made, Rishi. One is, if we as owners understand or learn to treat ourselves as trustees, that actually makes a serious difference to how you operate, how you look at the business. So all of these things like integrity, etc., then are a much easier given. Of course, you have to work at this, and it's important. You also raised an important point about a patriarch. Let me say, those families in which the patriarch or the matriarch, and it could be either one, is a giving individual, it's much easier than to get things to fall into place. If that individual is trying to hold back for herself or himself or for a few favorites, then you're definitely in trouble. You're in trouble for sure. Okay? And that's what usually sows the seed for trouble, because the distribution of businesses which are unpleasant, which start with the fight, happen at two times. One is when these kind of things happen in the family. Two is when some businesses are going down the tube and there's huge distinction or finger pointing that you were running this or I'm running this, where you do not look for accountability of performance of members of the family as much as you would look for if it was a professional running the business. So what we said was, in our case, we would be at an ideal situation when the family members behave professionally and the professionals feel they're part of this family.
Let me take it a little, future forward. Since the topic of discussion is also about putting in your legacy, etching the family business in posterity, etc. Do you see, and Anant, let me start with you on this tradition continuing in changing business dynamics as the world is changing, the tradition of family businesses, large businesses, family-owned, family-run, do you see that continuing? And what can and should the next generation do to take that legacy forward?
No, I absolutely see the tradition continuing. It's been going on for many years across different countries. You have Walmart in the US, which is a family business, and so many more. I'd say India has 70%. I don't think it's very different even for developed world, whether it's Europe or US. So to that extent, I see it continuing, but it will evolve. Some businesses will perish. New businesses will come up. We are now a startup nation. Many of these founders may now start passing it on to their kids as they become older. So to that extent, I see it continuing. I think it can evolve where now there is a separation to a certain extent between professionals coming in, ownership and management to that extent. So there is that shift that can happen over time. And I think it is again very subjective to that business, to that person, to life decision that an individual may take as to what they want to do and so on. But I think family businesses are clearly here to stay.
But by the way, when we're talking of the challenges of family-owned businesses, none of us should be under the mistaken impression that family businesses are declining in terms of number or their importance. Around the world, and I'm echoing the point Anant made, the largest number of job creation, growth, innovation, even tax payment in most countries in the world comes from family-owned businesses.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Their importance is not going away.
No, when I say challenges, I mean from the individual's perspective.
Yes.
From the individual's perspective, where it seems like, there's an entitlement, or that you have everything set out for you, your future set out for you. It may not be as easy as it seems.
No, but one thing is for sure, the changes taking place, especially due to technology, are making all of us take a hard look at what we do and also the way we do our business, the way we run our businesses. So I think we have to adapt and we have to adopt technology and the newer ways of thinking and working as quickly as we can. Otherwise, the threat to business is real. It is a real threat. So the smarter companies have now started doing two things. One is ensuring that you have a strategic view of the future, try and fold it into your business today. And second part, as I mentioned, to put the smart people in the family also to manage the family.
To manage the family?
Yes. There are families now globally, family-owned businesses, which have put the smartest people to manage the family rather than the business.
Yeah, I'd like to just add a point absolutely on this. I think one thing we don't see is the challenges that a family may face. And I met with Mr. Rao of GMR, Mr. GM Rao, and he asked me a question that, do you do pipe cleaning at home? So I said, what is pipe cleaning? I didn't understand that. So he said, no, there are pipes between you and your mother and you and your father and a daughter-in-law and a father-in-law. And those are the relationships that are there, which often don't get cleaned. And there can be disagreements where you may not be talking to each other for some time. There'll be feelings of, whatever, past hatred, which is always there in all families in some way. And they have a system where you get a professional who cleans up this relationship every 6 months.
Like a counselor.
So a counselor, kind of a person, a professional comes in and says, okay, you all talk it out, figure it out, start clean. And those are certain issues which plague the family and therefore the business. And those are things that are unseen. But he's managed to find a beautiful solution to managing the family and therefore the business.
Wow, what an exciting and innovative way. I think you need that in every family, whether it's
Incidentally,
a family business or
his
not.
initiative started at a CII event we did in Agra for family-owned businesses.
Oh, wow. I
So
didn't know
that's
that.
when Mr. Rao started doing this work.
Let me just take it further to the question of what family businesses can now also give back, the larger role they play in society. We've also, talked about the businesses growing, and it's been, in that sense, an insular conversation about how businesses can grow, how these families can grow, and the kids can get into business. What are they doing for society as a large, apart from, of course, being massive tax contributors? But is there a responsibility that goes even further? If anyone wants to take it first. Yeah.
I'll take it. Okay. I'll tell you something very interesting. My father gave us a value which we keep with us. He said that the only way to be happy in life is, while doing business, is to provide delight to 5 stakeholders. And those 5 stakeholders, he said, was the customers, the vendors, employees, government, and society. I asked him this question, that why are you not considering delight to the shareholders? He said, why do you need to delight the shareholders? If all these 5 are delighted, you are automatically delighted. Why are you doing the business? Are you doing the business for the society, welfare of the society, or are you doing the business for yourself? Profit is the result of the actions that you take while doing the duty of providing delight to all these 5 stakeholders. This is how we defined the values of our corporation, of our company. With this, we realized one thing, which was very important, that all these people are society. And if you are delighting the customer, you are doing a very simple thing. Minimum input, maximum output. You are doing the best cost, best quality. If you are delighting the vendor, you are delighting another group of people. You are keeping them enlightened with what is your need, helping them make best cost products. You can work with the vendors to reduce their cost, not get into cost cutting, but cost reduction. And that is a service to the society. Imagine $1 saved in the vendor end, $1 saved in your factory shop floor is $1 saved for the country. This is what we learned from him. And this is what is called giving back to the society according to him. Of course, there is philanthropy, there is all these things, but that everybody does. Profit में से एक हिस्सा निकाल के देना is a part and parcel of the Indian mentality. That is done. But what is most important to give back to the society is this cost reduction, value increase. This is the kind of things that we must do. Providing delight to the employees is to motivate them to work hard. And this is, according to us, has helped us in a very long way in creating value. Please note one very important thing. My father started this group at the age of 60 with 5 lakh rupees only. That was the beginning of my group. That was the only money we had in our family. With that, we have come a long way with these values that he gave us. So what I'm trying to say is that giving back to the society is not just giving back donations, charities, but also efficiencies built into the system. That is what we call as giving back to the society.
You know, we are talking about legacy actually of family businesses, and I think everybody needs to really review why they're in the business they're in. What is their purpose? And I think that's so well articulated by Rishi, because you got to understand that you're not just, so producing tires, or you're producing parts or components for making more money, but it has a larger role to play in society. So I think understanding that purpose relates to the value and the values that are going to see you through the generations. So I'll give you my example. The Walton Group has traditionally been in the space of infrastructure and services like that, building bridges, dams, pipelines, and heavy engineering, that kind of work. I do a completely different story. I train people, I skill people. That's my business. For me, the continuing factor has been building the national infrastructure. I said, you build the hard infrastructure, I build the soft infrastructure. So that has given our organization the purpose, and I see a great alignment with what Walton Group always did. So it's a very radically different business. And I think that's one part of redefining your purpose and looking at your business in a larger way and the impact it has on society. The other way to look at it is that traditionally family businesses, and you'll see all the original groups, always had a part of their shares, company shares, given to a trust, right? So the more the more you prospered, more dividends went in, you got the funding, and you did all your philanthropy through those trusts. So philanthropy, I agree with Rishi, is inbuilt in the Indian entrepreneurial landscape. And I hope that in today's day and age, where everybody's talking about the triple bottom line and ESG and sustainability, that's even got to even more important. And I think the vehicle with ensuring 2% of your net profit goes into it, we can do a lot more with it and give shape to that spend.
I want to take on from what both of them have said. The habit of the culture of giving in India is not new, but large organized giving of recent times is very new. We have been giving, but in an organized fashion to have a high impact, I think needs more attention than it's getting even today. What we started doing was, we said our non-profits will run exactly the same way as our companies run. We're involved with education. Actually, I personally spend a fair bit of time on some of these now, in education and healthcare, clean drinking water, gender issues, arts and culture, and a few other things of skilling, the point that Pallavi is making. It's important to build the nation and to build the future of the nation. Each of these has a role to play. If you just give money, there is a chance some of this will get done well and some may not. But because we've learned by running large enterprises, small, mid-size, and large enterprises, there is a certain amount of management technique to doing things efficiently and productively and well. I think it's important to deploy those resources also in these areas. So we've actually now tried to turn these. So we have a foundation which focuses and works in the arts, for example. It runs probably the largest interdisciplinary arts festival in the world now. And incidentally, the team of the foundation team is 35, 32 of the 35 are women. And young, smart, very passionate, and they do an amazing job. We are now building a permanent establishment to focus on every art form on one campus, on every aspect of the entire ecosystem of every art form at one place, through 20 institutions co-located and also co-dependent by design. That's the other thing we work on, is interdisciplinarity. In everything that we do now, we try and avoid a singular focus. So including teaching in our university is multidisciplinarity, is the underlying theme in all of these. And I think it's important because that builds your society and that builds your future.
Anant, do you want to come in on what is the legacy beyond being very profitable and good at what you do? Do you think that there is a larger responsibility?
No, absolutely. I think we're very, very lucky where we are and where we've come from. And it's an important part of our duty to give back. And it's not only the social work, but I think the whole element of purpose comes in. For us, our purpose is to make mobility safer and smarter every day. So we do think about, are we spreading the message of safety? There's so many deaths that happen. So as a tire company, it is our responsibility to make sure tires are safer. And that is what we found that is the biggest need of our customers as well. So one is the social part of it. But I think on top of that, having every company having a strong purpose becomes very important. On the social part of it, I'd just add that, so my wife runs that division, and very much like Mr. Munjal, I think they're doing a much better job than even the corporates is doing.
All right. On that note, I'm going to wrap up this excellent conversation and thank all of you for very frankly sharing your own stories, challenges, experiences, which I think will be inspirational for anyone watching or listening to this, whether you're part of a family business or aspire to start one, or even a professional. These are some values that are truly universal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.